Welcome to Hack Talks, brought to you by the NetWitness Incident Response Team, your weekly dive into the hottest picks, the strangest twists, and the you couldn't make this up moments in global cybersecurity. Every week, we break down what's happening out there, challenge a bit of conventional thinking, and of course, we crown this week's epic fail. My name is Gordon Dixon, your host in Glasgow, Scotland, and I'm joined as always by Stefano Macalia, the director based in Rome. Ciao, Stefano.
Hi, guys. Ciao, Gordon. Ciao, everyone.
And James Sobel, Senior Manager, usually based in Merritt Island, Florida, but this week coming live from a secret destination. Hi, James.
Hey. Secret destination. Miami Beach, baby. Woohoo!
It feels like MI6 or something, right?
Yes.
We'll have to come up with a code name for me.
Yeah, James is on a mission.
Yes.
To evangelize people on the OT cybersecurity. I know that.
And gives away exactly when we're recording this episode. As you can see, although James is in Miami Beach, he does have at least 3 layers of clothing on. So that probably gives away when we actually made this episode.
Yeah. By the way, guys, this is the first day in Italy with full sun after 3 weeks of full raining and rain showers. So just to make it clear.
You will be assimilated.
All right, let's get started with In the News, the stories that grabbed our attention this week. There's been no shortage of eyebrow raisers. So we'll start with you, Stefano. What's caught your eye this week?
Well, yes, thank you very much for, let's say, bringing this. I think the first and most important news this week is surely the vulnerability targeting BeyondTrust. Basically is a very recent CVE, but beyond the CVE, the problem is that this exploitation techniques is trivial. Everybody can do that. I mean, literally, BeyondTrust, which is a funny name. I mean, for me, BeyondTrust means something really secure. Okay, they forgot to leave. They left behind an input validation that is in the website of their application, in particular, the BeyondTrust remote support system and the privileged remote access systems. And basically, whoever is checking through the web browser a specific path into this thing is basically landing on the opportunity to execute the exploitation technique. As a trivial one, surely is beyond what is typical for a BeyondTrust, okay? And from the other perspective, I think, guys, bring your towel and wrap it around the appliance for the moment, because we are just waiting for the patch for that.
Yeah, I have to say, Stefano, BeyondTrust, how far beyond trust can we get? I mean, we're so far beyond, we've come around the other side.
Yeah. By the way, this is already being exploited in several cases. Palo Alto raised that at the beginning, and that generated the research that broke the CVE. CVE is 2026-1731. But more importantly, we started noticing this thing in our investigation. So be aware, this is really, really dangerous and is yet on the wild. So be careful.
Yeah, again, another a set of cautions that we have brought up a number of times, which is, organizations need to be prepared for these newly exploited, actively exploited capabilities. I'll say patch. I'll say it again. It's like a cheer.
Currently, the campaign is targeted financial services, legal services, high technology vendor, and even education and wholesale. So it's very wide and is targeting very different market verticals. So again, this is not an epic fail for us. It's more important, it's a big new, and it's important that you guys are aware of the risk if you have BeyondTrust applications in your ecosystem.
And always a reminder there, Stefano and James, isn't it, is to stay in touch and stay up to date and make sure that if you come across information, check in with your professional network as well and ensure that people find out about these critical issues as quickly as possible. So support each other to keep us all safe. James, you've spotted some things in the news as well this week.
Have a little cash on hand, right? One thing that caught my eye was a ransomware attack that hit BridgePay Network Solutions. Wow, that's a bit of a tongue twister. But that's a major US payment processor. But this ransomware attack, okay, ransomware attacks, that's pretty normal. Credit card processing companies, everybody hears of them. Put those two together, and that's a disruption that's noteworthy and newsworthy, right? This disrupted payment card transactions nationwide. It even hit a company in Florida, a city in Florida, where it messed up their online utility payment system. We had restaurants and stores and governments all impacted by this, because an attacker got into BridgePay's systems, initiated the ransomware attack, and it looks like this got out of control for everybody because what it did was knock them offline right away. So it forced them to come down, and it crashed their transaction services. Imagine people's surprise when you're a cashless person, you're not carrying a lot of cash on you, and you're attempting to make a transaction somewhere. The FBI and Secret Service were called in to help out with this. And I guess the good news here, no theft of credit card information or personal data or anything like that. Again, it sounds like this attack got out of control, and it ended up bringing down the victim before anyone could accomplish their objectives. And it's a bit of a tale of how the current cashless system, our economic systems that rely on a lot of back-end technologies, are quite vulnerable. And it's also another cautionary tale for other organizations when they're thinking about your cyber risk, and how you are mitigating and managing that. That there are third parties out there who could be at substantial risk. And if you aren't considering what those organizations might be going through, then that's another vulnerability that you're going to have to assess. And I take it one step further. You as an individual might want to carry a few bucks in your pocket just in case something like this goes on. Right, Stefano? You have a little backup cash on you because this is a real thing.
Exactly.
It's also the speed of this. This brought back memories of when I worked in a call center for a bank many years ago, and it was a quiet Saturday morning, and there was an old LED display that gave you the queue for the calls, and on a Saturday it was in the kind of sort of low dozens, really, because nobody is really phoning their bank on a Saturday morning. And I went away for a quick coffee and came back and sat down, and it had gone to 999, and that was the biggest number that it could do. And that was because the ATM system in the UK had crashed. And so it meant that nobody could get money out of the cash machine. Nobody could pay in the supermarket with their kind of sort of their cards, and just nothing could get done. So actually, although it was quite disastrous, it was an epic fail of sorts. We were in the one place where it was safe because we were working, and there was no way that we could get through the thousands of people phoning up, because at that moment in time, they thought it was just them. They didn't necessarily know it was the whole system. But a good reminder to, like in the old rules of backup, have different versions in different places of your access to the means to pay for your coffee, for sure.
I think you learn from that experience what it means an epic fail, right?
Yes. Fortunately, it wasn't our epic fail. It wasn't the responsibility of the bank I was working for at the time.
Resistance is futile.
And that leads us on to the moment of truth, this week's truly epic fail. So this is where we look at a cyber blunder, a slip up, or a downright questionable decision, and we rate it on our epic fail scale from 0 to 10. 0 is basically a rounding error, mostly harmless, and 10 is the full what the FIM were you thinking. So let's break down today's contender. And Stefano, you're bringing us this week's epic fail. What is it?
Okay, I want to anticipate. I am just purely sharing these out of the news without many, let's say, interactions with the victim at all. But I want to tell you, this is a bit funny. I don't know how big is the epic fail, but surely it's funny and is a typical example of what can go wrong on the public on the let's say public relation management level when things are not properly managed. So in a nutshell, Shiny Hunters is a renowned and infamous ransomware gang, and even, let's say, leveraging on info stealing techniques to steal data out of financial entities or wholesale markets entities. Basically, they, let's say, brought or purchased, we don't know how, but they collected a big bulk of data from Goose. Goose is a Canadian outerwear and clothes shop and retail shop, which is very famous, and it's really expensive. It's a luxury type of, let's say, positioning. And they collected this bulk and they started, let's say, offering this whole thing to the dark web, and basically offering these data, let's say, to the public audience. From the perspective of Goose, they immediately went, let's say, on broadcast saying, we don't have any trace of any type of breach in our company. Well, to be honest, guys, I assume before you say anything like that, you should double check your data on your back and ensure that really this is the case. Because in my personal opinion, say 600,000 of records of financial transactions cannot be flow out of a system unnoticed. So I don't know how big is this epic fail, but surely is remarkable because this is a trend that I notice nowadays. And more we go into, let's say, this type of situation, the more I am a bit concerned about this trend, because the trend is basically announcing to the world that despite the fact that I am breached, I strongly deny the breach, and it seems that everything is fixed. I don't think this is the best way. And for me, this epic fail is 7, not for the amount, because we definitely notice biggest amount of data collected and released by other actors in other cases, but surely because this is a typical example of how wrong you can be in the public relation when you announce that you don't see any issue, and on the other side, we see 600,000 of transaction release from your stores. Guys, it's an epic fail.
You know, Stefano, there is, there's multiple fails here, and you've pointed them out. And this is, which one do you want to go with? None of them are good. Did they not notice? Right? Is it they don't know? That's maybe even a bigger fail in my book, right? They somehow didn't know, and so they can say that, well, this didn't happen. Or do they sort of know, and like you said, maybe they're just choosing to deny, right? Well, we'll treat this as a PR campaign, right? As this is kind of a maybe treat our customers in a way that maybe isn't truthful or transparent. Well, both of those are really bad fails. And what? The attacker group, the cyber criminals, are the source of truth nowadays? I mean, that's a fail in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones with the accurate data. So yeah, a lot of epic fails, I think, in this one. It's good to call them out. I don't think they're our highest level, epic fails, but but they're certainly newsworthy. They don't, these don't have to be tens, right, to be interesting and to be, something that folks want to know about. But several of them in this one story for sure.
And for me, it comes back to something I remember you both sharing with me when I first sort of joined NetWitness and the team. And that's the difference between thinking about if we get attacked, what do we do, to when we get attacked, what will we do? And I think that's part of it as well. And that's maybe something that as cybersecurity professionals, we acknowledge, and we know that's the case. Maybe there is something for us to educate our colleagues in other parts of the organization with other responsibilities, that the fail isn't that we have been attacked. The fail is in how we best handle that and mitigate and communicate that to others. So yeah, I think this is a warning flag to people to include your colleagues in understanding what the threats are today and the frequency of them, for sure.
In my personal opinion, we need to evaluate this epic fail on two different aspects. From the, let's say, part of the data, let's say, exfiltration, we surely have a significant breach, but it's not bigger than many others. So it's, from that perspective, a 4 to 5 in our scale. But surely from the public relation and the way they communicated, this is a big 10, because you cannot deny the problem. It's your problem. It's not my problem. It's my problem if I am a user that is a victim of this. But surely it's not my problem to evaluate if you are or not being breached. It's obvious that you are being breached in a way or another. So it's good that when you, let's say, present the case, you say something a bit more, let's say, focused on what happened. Okay.
Stefano, I was going to originally rate this a 5. But listening to you review those, I agree with you. The PR side of this is massive, and it really does push that score up to a 7. You just cannot lie to your customers, and the good guys need to be the source of truth. You can't have the attacker be the source of truth.
Exactly. Gordon, what do you think?
Yes, I'm leaning towards a sort of 7 as well. But as you say, it's about highlighting this to non-cybersecurity professionals and for them to understand the seriousness of these situations. So I think that's really good. And if our colleagues want to use our epic fail scale when speaking with their PR or marketing colleagues, then feel free to, as long as you reference the Hack Talks podcast when using that scale, for sure. So nice. Yeah, so I think I'll go a 7 as well. So is that a 7 all round for all of us?
Yes,
I think so.
100%.
This week's epic fail score is 7.
Fantastic. And if you're thinking and listening and going, I've seen a bigger fail than that, then tell us about it. We want your nominations as well as your scores for this week's epic fail. And the bigger, the bolder, the better. And we look forward to sharing your epic fails in future episodes. Now, before we wrap, let's flip the mood with this week's mighty win. Something genuinely uplifting from the cyber world, a moment of competence, cleverness, or just a rare feel-good story in a sometimes gloomy landscape. And this week's mighty win is from you, James. What has brought a smile to your face down there in Florida?
You bet. Well, what's brought a smile to my face here in Florida is something that's happened a continent away in Africa, and it's a large crackdown on scammers and transactional networks. This, with a nod to soccer and football, is what has been called a world-class red card. In fact, the operation was called Red Card 2.0. So Red Card 1.0 appears to have netted about 300 arrests, and Red Card 2.0 has doubled that. And this is law enforcement agencies across 16 African countries working together with Interpol conducting a multi-week cybercrime operation. And as I said, they were able to crack down and arrest 600 individuals. They recovered millions of dollars that these individuals had scammed out of their victims. They also recovered, over 2,000 electronic devices that these individuals are using. They took down almost 1,500 malicious websites and domains. So big disruption to a scammer network that was involved in investment schemes and mobile money fraud and all the ugly crime stuff that that mobile technology and social networking sort of enable, right? And that's one of the big elements here, right? What the investigators uncovered was a lot of social media abuse, a lot of abuse of messaging platforms, over 1,000 fake social media accounts. Somebody's friending you and they look too good to be true. Maybe they are. This was impressive, an impressive multi-region, multinational cooperative event where law enforcement got together and did something. And so this is a huge win. I think we need much, much more of this. We don't want to live with too much regulation and too many, and sort of a police state kind of environment. But in this case, the scammers and the fraudsters have such an advantage. It's nice to see where organizations, nations, and law enforcement can get together and do something about it. So big win, I think, for everyone.
We normally should give a big applause to whoever is cooperating in fighting these, because I remember some cases back in time when I went, let's say, as a researcher, engaged to, let's say, track some of these activities, not specifically this operation, but similar operation. And one of the most significant aspects that I collected from that experience was that the attackers were very confident. The fraudsters were very confident, even overconfident. They consider them untouchable because they live in Nigeria, they live on different parts of the world, that where they were having a very, let's say, a very protected way to, let's say, even if in the open, they were not into a tunnel, not into a very small office in the dark, operating like, let's say, like conspirators. They were in the open. They even created or invested money into traditional activities after collecting this money. And so having these opportunities, having these, let's say, actions took by the law enforcement agencies cooperating is very important, because they make a precise and clear sign beyond the law, and that is really, really important.
I have to agree with you, Stefano, and it's the taking away this operation with impunity, right? Really removes a big vulnerability, a big disadvantage of defenders and just individuals. It's one thing to be kind of to be vulnerable, or to maybe not patch, have a bad password or something like that. But when your scammer or your attacker can operate, with impunity, that leaves you at a substantial disadvantage. And one more thing really quick here. You know what? This is hundreds of people and thousands of devices. This is HI. This is human intelligence, social engineering, human intelligence, right? People can be arrested. People can be pulled off the street. People have impunity. I think we'll start to talk maybe in future episodes how those people might not be humans, but maybe they'll be agents. And that's going to change the dynamic here a little.
Of course, of course.
Thanks very much for that. And it is a mighty win. And it's nice to end this episode thinking about our jobs as cybersecurity professionals aren't just about defense. We can also go on the attack as well and get the bad guys every so often.
You have been watching Hack Talks.
So thank you very much. Huge thanks to Stefano and James for joining me today. And thanks to you for tuning in. This has been Hack Talks from NetWitness Incident Response. We'll see you next time. So it's goodbye from me, Gordon Dixon in Glasgow, and goodbye from Stefano.
Ciao, and bring the towel every time.
Every time. And James as well.
Take care. Remember, some extra cash and stay warm out there.